Hi everyone, this is Devleena welcoming you all to another exciting episode of Iconic Ads with Devleena and Saurabh. And with me, I have my expert co host, Mr. Saurabh Bajaj. A warm welcome to you,
Hi,
Saurabh. Hi,
hi, great
once
to be here
again.
again.
And I am very excited to bring our guest for today, a seasoned marketing professional with she has worked with substantial companies like Mondelez International, the Coca-Cola Company, and a warm welcome to you, Miss Suparna Madan. Hi, Suparna.
Hello. Hi, how are
Hi,
you?
Suparna.
I'm all good, Suparna, and I'm excited to talk about the a very interesting brand and a very interesting campaign. Before we start the campaign, let me play the ad, and then we will jump into the conversation.
सर उठता है उम्मीद में, सर उठता है प्रार्थना में, सर उठता है मस्ती में, सर उठता है सब कुछ भुलाने के लिए, सर उठता है शुक्रिया में, सर उठता है जश्न में, और सर हमेशा उठता है कोका कोला के साथ। न जाने कितने होठों को छू रहा है, कितने दिलों में उतर रहा है। कोका कोला पियो सर उठा के।
About your association with Coca-Cola that particular point of time and your involvement with the ad campaign.
Sure. I joined Coca-Cola in 2005, and I joined as the insights manager. So I was handling consumer insights, the market share piece, which used to be very interesting because in Coke versus Pepsi, the competition is very intense. It's actually like a street fight, And I was handling the brand equity work for the cola brand. So there was Coke, there was Thumbs Up, and then there were the zeros of the world, the smaller ones that were supposed to be the future. So that's basically the work that I was doing in 2005. 2005 was a unique year because just 2 years prior, the entire soft drink industry had been hit by the pesticide controversy, and there had been huge volume tanking, and there was a massive impact of that which had happened. And that itself is a very interesting story because just prior to that is when liberalization had happened, and the country was opening up, and there was a lot of investment that the companies, the soft drink giants, had done to try and make affordability, something possible. So there was a lot of investment. I don't know if you remember that Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola ads in which there was a paanch ka ad, like carbon kitna chapega. So there was massive investment which had been done. A lot of bottlers had been brought in. The glass had been purchased because we used to have glass bottles at that point in time. So it used to be, I think, almost 65% used to be glass bottles. So you had to purchase the glass, get the inventory in place, and there were massive scale-up plans which had been impacted very badly by pesticide in 2003, and slowly we were limping back in 2005. So this is 2005 is when we had started seeing a revival, and it was also a year where commodities were again, taking us for a joyride. So we had to take pricing, massive pricing we had taken. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was almost double-digit pricing. And obviously it was staged, but that is something that we were working on through 2005 and 2006. And we were thinking, we'll be able to sail through. Now people have forgotten about the pesticide incident. And anyway, we've cleaned up everything, all the work that needed to be done from a reassuring consumers part, that has been completely done. And we have a very clear understanding of what is going on. 2006 August, second pesticide controversy. So we woke up in the morning and we realized that, okay, this is what the newspapers are saying. It's been blown up to the skies all over again. And it was um, so scathing. I mean, actually, the truth is that when consumers are just getting over, a certain kind of an allegation in a way, and they've started in a way trusting you again, and then something like this blows up. It doesn't have it's not as though it has to be your fault, because these are all trials by media, right? But when something like this happens, a lot of faith breaks down. So forget what people think about the brand. People were even they were very openly talking to Coke employees and calling them out, saying that, listen, you guys are, working for a company which is like this. And nobody wanted to listen to the truth. Okay. So it didn't matter how much the quality team had invested in, whatever, making sure there was, I think, some double carbon filter, some massive, investment in quality systems, massive investments in figuring out whether the groundwater that you're taking, or whatever water that you're taking, is actually, the pesticides used to come from the water only, because the tea would have, more pesticide than a bottle of Coke. But when something like this happens and there is somebody pointing fingers, consumers don't want to listen to this. And there were situations when I had gone to, whatever social occasions, and in the middle of social occasions, family friends would point fingers and say, oh, you're working for this company. And it would be very, very, it would be awkward. And I remember that, I think a couple of days into this, maybe a week or 10 days, a week, I think, the CEO and the quality team, they called a meeting of the entire staff. So we were gathered in the cafeteria. That was the largest room. All tables and chairs had been removed. Everybody was there. And the quality head, I still remember him, and the corporate affairs head. They were standing over there in front of all of us, fearless. And they took us through point by point by point on how much the company had actually done to make sure that, our products are safe and our products are, completely free of these kind of allegations. And it was a unique time, because you I had not seen something like this before. So, like, people standing fearlessly in front of, a team of maybe, I don't know, 200, 300 people, and saying, you ask me a question, I will answer it. And they went through the entire piece with us. They went through all the data, and then the baton was in our hands as the marketing team, as the insights team. We had to figure out, okay, fine, the lack of faith that we felt, the reassurance that we have received over here, we have to take this forward to consumers. And how do we do it? And believe me, it wasn't simple, because when this controversy happened for the second time, the superstars who were actually on the brands, they were very concerned. They were not very eager to, just simply, okay, tell me what it is and we can figure out. I remember that we had to walk the teams of the superstars. In fact, they hired their own quality people, because they could, to understand the technical piece, and they had our guys run random tests, picking up samples across markets and explaining it to their quality teams, explaining to them, this is what the product is, this is how the testing has been done, these are the parameters. And it was a massive, massive job, even convincing them, that, listen, we're in the right, and we need to solve for this. So you've been with us, and this is not something which is, which we are responsible for. We have taken active steps in the past. This is not something that, is true. So, but, just standing up in front of consumers and, putting that out, it many times, even the messaging part, which is the work that we did afterwards, you have to handle it very carefully. Because what you say in 2003, saying that, no, 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 whatever, there are different ways in which you handle it, it's the second time when it happens, it's not necessarily what people want to hear. Or even in terms of which the brand that you're working on, what is the tonality that you employ, it's a very different kind of conversation. So we used multiple rules, saying, okay, fine, how do we talk to the consumers? Should we keep silent? Should we stand upright? Should we just say no, no, no and deny all of these allegations? Should we give them, quality proof? Will they understand what we are saying in terms of, okay, fine, these are the values and this is the testing which has been done? Do they even care about that? What do they want? So there was a lot of work that was done, and incidentally, I think that was Third Eye only, Saurabh, who was working on that study at that time. Third Eye and one more agency. And what we realized was that there are two very different pictures emerging for different brands. In the case of Coca-Cola, which was a much more multinational, much more international kind of a brand, and a much smaller brand as well, the tonality that the consumers wanted was very different. So the moment you went and told them something directly, the image and the associations that they already had about multinationals, versus what they feel about an Indian brand, was very, very different. So that you could not go and directly tell them that, oh, you know what, this is all wrong. You could not use technical language with them. Consumers are not technical. you could not keep quiet, and you could not even be, very gentle in terms of, okay, fine, let's just do our regular advertising. So actually the communication that was crafted, which you see with Amir Khan, PO sir, Uthake, there was a lot of work that went into reassuring consumers about the quality of the product, about the pride that we have in the product. And this was followed by snippets of smaller ads in which we were giving technical data. So this was the thematic in which the entire piece is about, how you can feel proud and about drinking this product. You can feel proud about being associated with this product. There was a lot of convincing that had gone, in this for various people, various stakeholders. I remember being in Insights. I remember the quality team had come and sit with me, and that was my first experience with the quality team. And they were asking for massive amounts of data, because apparently a lot of this data was getting submitted to the government, and the government was going to sit and decide on a couple of things. So it was very, very sensitive. And we realized that this is the kind of tonality that's going to work. And this is the communication that was taken forward for Coca-Cola. On the other hand, we realized that this is not something that's going to work for Thumbs Up. So there were multiple routes which were explored for Thumbs Up as well. And given the kind of brand it is, first of all, it was seen as an Indian brand. It's a very male brand. It's masculine. It is not a brand that is, it steps back or it shies away. That's not the persona of the brand. So the kind of treatment that we had to do with that, and we have a Chiranjeevi ad for that, in which there is a truth challenge. That was very, very different from the route that was taken for Coca-Cola, even though the overall macro situation was the same.
So we're just reflecting on the fact that, every single packaged product has been through this controversy, yet we savor food in a dhaba or, a puchka on a roadside and, so on and so forth. And that doesn't bother us as much as the smallest controversy in a Western packaged food. So just wondering, why is that?
So, actually, you are right. And I think what happens is, there are two things that I can think of. One is that when you look at what you buy from the roadside, or what you buy, street foods or whatever, they have a sense of familiarity about them. Okay, so there's something that you've been using and eating for decades. There's something that, that's been there. Your family has been consuming it. So what you're familiar with, you will not necessarily, question it that much. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that when you look at multinational products, and particularly Western products, so it could be biscuits, it could be soft drinks, it could be noodles. These are not theplas or bhujia, or these are actually Western formats as well. So when you look at these and you look at a multinational branding on top of that, a lot of these categories have been created based on the fundamentals of your creating brand love. Okay, so what you feel at a mass scale from a brand love perspective is, oh, I love Maggie, I don't like Maggie, I love Maggie, or I love Coke. And I think this is much more true about, say, 10-15 years ago than possibly now, where media is much more fragmented. The more you love something, the more you will push back when you hear negative news. So, like, the higher you rise, the lower you can fall. So I think these two things are possibly, coming to my mind from.
So, tell me, from your experience, what are potentially the various models that brands have adopted? I mean, have they all, in your opinion, followed a similar line of, defense in terms of bringing a celebrity, bringing some assurance, and is that the way, or do you feel there are, various ways to deal with a challenge like this?
So it depends on a couple of things. One is, what is the stature of the brand in that particular country or the geography? What is the kind of, brand love it is seeing? What is the scale of the brand? And what is the type of problem? So I think the kind of response that you need to give to an article in the newspaper versus a consumer who's saying that he'll put it on Twitter, versus the pesticide thing, I think it has to be measured, and the response has to be tailored to the situation.
One more question on on the ad side. So when you said that when the team decided to response back on this scenario, you floated a lot of communication through ads and other things. So how was the acceptance from the consumer side, where they were like so aggressive, like they were talking to the employees in this tone. So how was the acceptance and how long it took for the consumer to accept this brand as their own?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and I remember that we had put up weekly tracks. So possibly Saurabh Bajaj will know that I used to release monthly tracks, and people used to say it's not frequent enough. And for this one, initially we had I'm talking about the pesticide controversy in 2006. We initially had daily tracks for almost, I think, month and a half to look at consumer sentiment, which we then tapered off to weekly tracks, and then eventually we moved back to monthly. And I think the most important thing that we realized after the entire outrage and that was over was the reason real consumers, okay, the reason real consumers, normal consumers were asking was because they wanted to be reassured. Okay, so this was a very important aspect, and it was a little bit different because over time, as the years went by, gradually the acceptability of international brands had grown, and what people wanted, what they were really asking for was, tell me why I should believe you. It was not like, it was less about I don't believe you, go away. It was more about explain to me, why should I believe you, why should I trust you again, and I want to trust you, but please walk me through it. So that, I think, was a very, very encouraging piece. If I remember correctly, I think by the end of 2007 we were taking off again. So luckily this happened in 2006 after the peak season was over. So we had a little bit of time to kind of figure out our response. And then I think, if I remember correctly, it took about maybe about 18 months, whereas the first round was much more painful. I think the first time that it happened, it was longer than 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So, but here, by the time 18 months were gone, we had started seeing consumers feeling reassured.
Great, great. No, I think it's a fabulous conversation. I think we covered a lot.
So, yeah, we covered almost a lot of interesting aspects here, the pesticides controversy. So, this was one of the very insightful conversation on the controversies. So, Saurabh, I would love to know about the takeaways and learnings from this particular piece of conversation of Coca-Cola.
No, I think this is a super valuable, conversation because I think this is every marketeer's nightmare. For any marketeer, any brand, getting a controversy on your brand. I mean, there can be nothing worse than this, right?
Yeah.
And how does a marketeer deal with this? I think is very, very important. It should be almost something that I believe should be there in the, marketing textbooks. There should be almost a guideline for marketers to follow out there, right? And there doesn't one exist, so maybe this episode is the one.
Maybe dealing the crisis.
Yes, yes. Now, how do you do crisis management in the crisis of the consumers' confidence?
Right.
Now, let's just take out the three learnings that we have had from this episode. I think the first learning for me is that FMCG brands, which are very, very simple products that we do use on our everyday basis, they have very simple functional benefits. A large part of their existence of those brands are emotional. They are built on the emotional equity that has been built. It's been the brand love that makes these brands relevant. And if if there is the smallest, shake up on that, the entire building can come crashing down. Yeah. And hence, I think it is very, very important in today's time in a social media world for brands and manufacturers to invest in social listening, to invest in consumer panels, to invest in consumer tracks, to really have a clear idea what is the large mass of humanity thinking and feeling about them so that they can preempt a crisis and not have to respond or react. Yeah, as the first thing. The second piece of learning for me in this conversation has been the fact that you cannot have a knee-jerk reaction. You have to really study the consumer, use your insights function, get your tools in place so that you respond in the right way. Yeah, and there is not necessarily a right way. There can always be a tailored way. So in the case of Coke, the insight that we had, that consumers wanted to believe the brand, and they were basically saying, why should I believe you, rather than saying that I don't believe you, right? And that piece of understanding was so important in figuring out your response strategy. That really was really valuable for you. The third part of the learning is the fact that your employees are your ambassadors. They are your first line of defense. They are the first people that react and get affected by such controversies. And hence, it's not only the outside consumer that you need to talk to. it is also the inside consumer. It's your employees that you need to have a channel of communication open with, where you take ideas from them as well as give ideas to and give confidence to. I think for me, these are the three things that are very critical, right? And hence, like in summary, our FMCG brands are largely built on emotional benefits. It's very important to have social listening to understand what the consumer is talking about. Second, it is very important to take a step back, get an insight as to what is the consumer thinking and feeling, so you don't do a knee-jerk reaction. And third, prioritize on giving confidence to your ambassadors, your internal employees, as much if not more than the consumer, because that's the first line of defense. So I think for me, these are through takeouts on probably crisis handling in an FMCG situation.
Super. Wonderful takeaways, sort of. So thank you for sharing these lovely takeaways and key insights for us. And these are really wonderful. Thank you for being
Look
here.
forward to next week.
Yes.